I'm Madam Shukrani from Educare Institute, and we are proceeding with Necta solvings. And for today, we are going to have a discussion, specifically English language from 4. It is Necta 2018, question number 10B. The question reads, answer 2 questions from the 4 alternatives A, B, C, and D. So here there are 4 alternatives to the candidate. We are required to choose only 2 from these 4. As we have discussed the previous lesson we discussed the alternative A. So today we are going to have a discussion on alternative B. It reads, imagine that you were invited to attend the Day of African Child, which is celebrated on 6th June every year at the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, premises. As an expert of special education for children, write your speech about child labor in not less than 250 words. Imagine that you were invited to attend the Day of African Child, which is celebrated on 6th June every year at the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, premises. As an expert of special education for children, write your speech about child labor in not less than 250 words. From this question, here the candidate were required to write a speech specifically about child labor. But first, let us know about the Day of African Child, the meaning of this term and how is it celebrated. First of all, this question had an error there in the date. It was 16th of June, not 6th. So one thing to remember is 16th. And this day of the Day of African Child, it is celebrated in every year to remember how it was South African children or students who protested against apartheid rule in that time. So they struggled much in order to attain their language, Afrikaans, to be their language of to be the medium of instruction in their schools. So they protested against the government in order to be allowed to use that Afrikaans in most of Bantu schools in South Africa. So from that moment is where people celebrate about the power of these students on changing the world, on changing the life system which exists in their lives. So from that moment, in 16th June in every year, people celebrate about the Day of African Child. And in this question, we are going to look on the meaning of speech, its types, and then we are going to give the example of this speech, or how should it be. Firstly, in the definition of speech, we say that speech is the formal address or discourse delivered to an audience, or is the ability to express thoughts and feelings by articulate words. So tukisema kwamba ni speech, tunamaanisha kwamba ni ile uwezo wa mtu kutoa maoni yake au mawazo yake au hisia zake mbele ya watu kwa kutumia maneno. So here involve articulation of words. The way you speak in front of people is where they can understand on your thoughts and how you feel about the issue or about the topic discussed. Types of speech. Aina za hotuba. There are 5 types of speech, which are informative speech, persuasive speech, demonstrative speech, special occasion speech, and entertainment speech. These are all types of speech. So speech can appear in different ways. It depends on its intention and what the thought or feelings of the writer or the creator decided to give to the audience. Let us start with informative speech. We say that informative speech is the kind of speech that gives a fact or a claim which cannot be argued. Informative speech ni ile speech au hotuba ambayo inatolewa katika namna ya uhalisia. Unatoa vitu ambavyo ni uhalisia kiasi kwamba hakuna anayeweza kubisha au kukupinga. Unatoa kitu ambacho unatoa taarifa rasmi yenye uhakika. For example, lectures in colleges and universities, these are facts given by lecturers and cannot be argued. Kwamba hapa mfano wake ni tuseme masomo yanayotolewa na walimu kule vyuoni, katika vyuo vya kati na vyuo vya elimu ya juu. Hapa wanatoa mafunzo au wanatoa masomo ambayo hakuna mwanafunzi anaweza kabisha, yani akasimama akaweka pande mbili, yani wanaokubali na wanaokataa. It is a fact, not an opinion. So informative speech are facts and not opinions. Another kind of speech is persuasive speech. It's the kind of speech that tends to convince people to take a particular action or to do something. So this kind of speech require or intend to convince people or to convince the audience to change their direction or to do something or to take a particular action. For example, voting, recycling, or organ donation. In voting, we can take an example during campaigns. Tunaona kwamba katika uchaguzi anaweza katokea mgombea akasimama akaanza kujielezea kwamba nitafanya hiki, nitawajengea madarasa, nitajenga shule, barabara nitatengeneza, nitaongeza maji yatakuwa safi na salama, kutakuwa na umeme hautokatika. Through that point or that speech is where the speaker, the audience tend to choose that person because of what he or she promised them. So through that speech is where attracted the people to take an action of choosing this person. Without that, they may not understand on how you are going to help them, so they may not choose you. So this is an example of persuasive speech, which convince people. You try to convince people to take an action or to do something. Another type is demonstrative speech. We say that this is the kind of speech where the present explain the process, task, or step by step in doing something. Here, the presenter tries to show to give the steps or to give the procedures in doing something. For example, when someone is teaching or is giving a speech or presenting on how to make a delicious food, she or he may try to mention the requirements and the procedures, what you're going to do in order to make delicious food. You start from where up to where in order to get what you intended to have. So here we can take an example in problem solving techniques or process. We know that the first step is problem identification. So from that point, you give your audience the room to understand what are you talking about and what should he or she make in order to get the intended outcomes. So here it is only based on the processes, task, or step by step in doing something. For example, when you try to tell people about how to succeed maybe in studies, kwenye masomo unaweza ukawaambia wanafunzi kwamba utalala labda saa 4, amka saa 10, usome, nenda kale chakula, fanya mazoezi. Those are step by step or processes in order to achieve something or to do something in a good way. Another kind of speech is entertainment speech or entertaining speech. It is the speech that intends to make people relax, laugh, and feel happy. So this kind of speech, they only intend to make people laugh, to make people relax, to refresh their minds. So when you try to create a speech like this which entertain people, you have to choose the words which may attract their attentions, then which will make them feel happy or laugh, to refresh their minds and their stresses. So another, or the last one, is special occasion speech. This is the kind of speech that is given in a special event, for example, ceremony, graduation. So in this kind of speech, this is the speech which is given in a special event. For example, in graduations, yule tunasema mgeni rasmi anatoa hotuba yake kwa wanafunzi wanaomaliza au kwa jamii nzima kwa ujumla. Anatoa maoni, anatoa mapendekezo, anatoa changamoto, labda nini kifanyike, anatoa mbinu za kufanya. That is a special occasion speech. It means that he tries to give or to present something in a special event or in the ceremony. So the presenter tries to explain or to show on what to do, maybe what should we change, what should we improve in a special occasion or special event like these ceremonies and graduation. So let us look on the structure of a good speech. Structure of a good speech. A good speech should have introduction, main body, and conclusion. Introduction, main body, and conclusion. In introduction is where the presenter starts by invite people's attentions, greetings from the top to the bottom. Means that from the person who is the higher than, then to the last, to the all member all member who are involved in that gathering. So here the speaker or the presenter starts by mentioning their positions, maybe by thanking them. Then after that draws the attention or the atmosphere of all people in that place in order for them to listen to him or to her. Another thing is main body. In this part is where the speaker starts to show or to mention and to explain the theme or the main ideas of that speech. So if it is causes maybe of child labor or of poverty in African societies or any topic. So here the presenter tries to show or to explain on these issues, basically in causes or effects or something which he intended to give to the audience. In conclusion here, it is a closing of a speech. So the presenter tries to use good words and maybe give an advice to the society or give the outcome of the of the issue of the problem, then conclude his or her presentation. Let us look on the example of a speech. This is heading which reads, a speech given by an expert of special education for children about child labor on the Day of African Child on 6th June 2018. This is how the question we're asking. You imagine that you are the expert of special education for children, then you should write a speech about child labor. So here it's an example of this speech. The introduction part is where we get the welcoming words or the words which attract attention of the listeners to the presenter. So the candidate were required to write the words like Honorable Chief Guest, UNICEF Director, Social Work Director, Regional Commissioners, District Commissioner, Educational expertise on all invited guests. How are you? Means that you are greeting the majority, all the people. Then they answer you. Then you proceed in thanking them and proceed with your presentation. For example, in this speech, Honorable Chief Guest, UNICEF Director, Social Work Director, Regional Commissioner, District Commissioner, Educational expertise, and all invited guests, how are you? I am very thankful for this opportunity to stand in front of you to speak about the issue of child labor. This has been a serious issue in Africa, whereby most of children are employed in different sectors. Some are in dangerous places which forces them to work hard in order to survive, but most of children in African countries are employed. The problem is they work at a very young age, so sometimes they may work on little pay or no pay at all. So from here, you make the audience understand that you are talking about a serious problem or serious issue in African countries. It is about children employments. So from that point is where you may start to explain maybe the main body or what you are going to say. What do you want to say to the audience, or what actions do you want the audience to take? Here we can say, here the speech continue. For today, I will speak on some causes of child labor and some of its effects as follow. So here you make the audience aware that you are going to talk about causes. If it is effects, you tell them that I'm going to talk about effects of child labor. But now the speech reads that for today I will speak on some causes of child labor and some of its effects as follow. Then there are words to use when introducing a point or beginning to speak about something. You can use the word like ladies and gentlemen. So here in this speech, it reads, ladies and gentlemen, the first cause of child labor is poverty and poor living condition. In most of African countries, there are some people who cannot afford their basic needs such as food, shelter, clothes, housing, safe water, and electricity, which forces children to engage in works. So here, by giving this explanation, it tells the audience that in most of African countries there is poor living condition. That is the first cause or factor which make the children to engage in different works or employments. Another point is by saying, ladies and gentlemen, another cause is family instability or disintegration. As we know that family instability is the situation whereby there is no peace in the family or a particular family. So people live in a life whereby they can't maybe share even their ideas. We may see, like, we may have a parent who can't feel the situation his children or his child facing. So there is no peace in that family. Every person or every member of the family have his way of thinking, of doing things. So this cause disintegration, separation of that family. Most of African countries, they live under separation. Familia nyingi unakuta baba haishi na mke wake, watoto wanarandaranda, mara watoto wako kwa mjomba, kesho wako kwa shangazi. In order to survive or to proceed to get their basic needs, they choose to work. Unakuta mtoto anachagua, bora nikaokote hata makopo, niwe nauza 200 nipate chakula cha mchana na cha jioni. Or other children engage in army groups. Unakuta watoto wanajiunga kwenye makundi yale ya vita, mara wanajiunga makundi yale ya waasi, wanaitwa waasi wa nchi, kwa sababu tu wamekosa maisha au mafunzo bora kwa familia, yani kutoka kwa wazazi wao. So children lack poor care. That's why they engage in different works to sustain their lives. They lack the parental care. Wazazi hawawatunzi watoto wao. Unakuta mtoto, in most of African countries, mtoto hapati matunzo ya baba na mama. Unakuta baba anaishi zake mkoa mwingine au nchi nyingine, mama nchi nyingine. Mama uwezo ni mdogo, kwa hiyo anashindwa kumtunza mtoto katika malezi bora. Mtoto anaamua kuondoka nyumbani na kwenda kujiingiza katika makundi mengine. So this is among of factors which lead to child labor. Another point. So the presenter should start with words like, ladies and gentlemen, another cause is strong desire to success. As we can see that most of young children or young children in African societies, they have a strong desire to success. They want to succeed. They want to change their lives. They want to live their lives in a better way, more than how their parents did or how their parents lived. So in order to change their lives, they try to work hard to find an opportunity everywhere in order to get a change in their lives. So through that is where most of children in Africa country desire high their age. They engage in works in search of richness. So they want to be rich, they want to own houses, they want to own cars, modern cars, they want to own everything nice. So in order to own this, it forces them to engage in different groups in order to get richness or to get success. So in their search to success or to richness is where they meet peoples who are businessmen. Maybe they have their own companies, they have their industries. Once they find these children, they take them as they are laborers, then they employ. But the problem is among of these children, they face the problem like no pay or little pay. You may work hard, you may work even overtime, but they are not paid as how it was supposed to be. Unakuta mtoto labda anafanya kazi kubwa. Tuchukulie mfano wale wanaokota makopo, unakuta labda ameukota makopo mengi, gunia limejaa, apewe 1,000. Haimtoshi, yani haiwezi kukidhi mahitaji yake. So that forces the children to do more and more in order to succeed. So in that desire forces them to be employed, to be under somebody who controls their lives instead of living their lives with their parents maybe. So this is among of factor which leads to child labor. Watoto wanajihusisha na hizi ajira za utotoni, kazi za utotoni kwa sababu tu ya kuwa na ile desire ya kuwa tajiri. Also, you may find that a child have a neighbor who lives in a better life, so they choose to work or to find a job in order to live in a good life, in order to have the things which the person has. So it is out of their ages, but they try much to get richness. That's why they engage in child labor in their young age. In conclusion, we can say that child labor have been led to several problems in African societies. Some of them are loss of manpower, increase of criminal cases, death, etc. So it is my call to government, politicians, and all people to make sure that every child get a chance to education. So here the presenter have been given in his or her presentation have been given the conclusion by mentioning the effects of child labor to the society or to among of African countries, such as loss of manpower. We know that this youth generation is the generation which is going to replace the previous generation or the older generation by bringing changes which maybe have not met by the older generation. So when they face challenges like this child labor, they lose their power in working. We may find that others are employed in the areas which are very dangerous to their lives. So others may die in that areas, or others may engage in criminal cases. You know, we may find that children who range from 10 to 20, they are in jail, they are in prison because they engage in cases, criminal cases, which were not supposed to be in places. They are supposed to be in schools, but we can find them that they are in prison because of lacking of care from their parents and engaging in child labor. They want to be rich, so they engage in different activities like being thieves. So they engage in these activities for getting money or for their desire to get richness. So then here a presenter should give advice. So he gave the advice like, it is my call to government, politicians, and all people to make sure that every child get a chance to education. So every child should get the chance to education. And this marks the end of our discussion today. So we'll meet in other sessions.